So that part we had covered about your preparation, the why, the how, the myths, the advantages, disadvantages. That part we had covered in the previous session. Today we'll move to the next part, the 5-day breakdown of the 5-day period. Now, you know the entire process of selection lasts for a period of 5 days, but sometimes it may last only for 1 day. For some candidates, it may only last for 1 day. We'll talk about that in a short while. So, your 5-day period. See, you know, you are, when you go for your SSB, you're there for 5 days. So you are required to report 1 day prior to the start of your SSB, prior to the start of day 1 of your SSB. So you report 1 day earlier and you report at the railway station, at the MCO's office, and somebody, a representative of the SSB will come and receive you there, and he will take you to the SSB center. You do not have to go there under your own arrangements. Somebody from the SSB will receive you. He will come with transport and take you there. Okay, and once you reach there, you will be accommodated in dormitory accommodation, and you will be shown all the place around. Where is your dining in area? Where are you gonna stay? And all those details. And you are told the timing for the next day when you are required to fall in. Now, what happens on day 1? On the first day of your SSB, when you have assembled, somebody will take you to a very big auditorium where an opening address will take place. Who will deliver this opening address? Any officer of the SSB. It could be anybody, either a GT or a psychologist or the administrative officer. Somebody will come and he will deliver an opening address. It may last only 2, 3, 4 minutes, not more than that. Now, in that opening address, what happens? He welcomes you. He welcomes every candidate who has come for that SSB. And he says, hope you'll have a comfortable stay. Hope you will get selected. Things like that. Just he welcomes you basically. And in this opening address, he will also issue certain general instructions which you are required to abide by. Now, what are these general instructions about? These instructions are basically guidelines for you. What are the things that you can do? What are the things you cannot do while you are at the SSB center? So we'll look at those instructions in the next slide. So this is the first thing which happens. After the opening address, your documentation and filling of forms takes place, wherein you are required to fill certain forms, and some clerical staff will check your documents. In the joining instructions, you are told which are the original documents, what documents are you required to carry for your SSB process. So all those documents are checked by some clerical staff. After this, you will be allotted a chest number. What is a chest number? It's a piece of cloth, a kind of an apron, which has a number in the front and also in the rear. You are required to wear this chest number throughout your SSB process, all 5 days. I'll show you a picture of the chest number in a short while. So every candidate is allotted a chest number. The third thing, point number C, filling of PIQ form. There's a form which you are required to fill. It is called PIQ form. The full form of this form is Personal Information Questionnaire Form. Every candidate is required to fill this form. It is a 4-page form. It is a kind of a resume. It contains all your details, your personal details. So we'll talk about this form as we go along. So this is the third thing which happens, filling of PIQ form. Now point number A, B, and C. These are the administrative points that you are required to comply with on the first day, when you report there. Now point number D and E is where your tests begin. So point number D, There are two types of tests. These are psychological tests. They're called intelligence test verbal and intelligence test non-verbal. So there are two tests that you are required to appear. This is the start of the SSB. Now these tests determine a candidate's IQ level, which is recorded in your PIQ form. We'll talk about intelligence tests. What are they? What is the format? When we come to this part of the slide. Now the fifth point, point number E, the PPDT screening test. It is the most important test of your SSB, of your 5-day process, because if you do not do well in PPDT, the full form of this test is picture, perception and discussion test. Now, if you do not clear this test, if you fail to clear the PPDT, you will be screened out. What is screened out? Screened out means you will be rejected. You will be removed from that SSB process on the very first day and you will have to come back. Then in that case, you will not be able to stay in the SSB in that center for 5 days. You will only be there just for 1 day. After day 1, after this test is completed and the result is declared, any candidate who has not been able to clear this test is asked to leave the SSB center. And in case you clear it, then your stay in the SSB is guaranteed for 4 more days. Even if you do not do well in other tests, still you will not be removed from the SSB for the next 4 days. Only on the 5th day of the SSB, when the final result is declared, will you be asked to leave. That means that is the time when you will get rejected, even if you have not done well in any of the subsequent tests. So PPDT, that is the most important test, and that is why it is called the screening test. Okay. These are the general instructions, the don'ts that you need to listen carefully to and also adhere to. Generally, what are the points that it contains? Those general instructions. Firstly, you're not allowed to consume any alcohol or tobacco or any kind of drugs inside the SSB premises or outside. Please do not violate these instructions. If you're caught consuming alcohol, you will be removed immediately on disciplinary grounds. You will have to, at any point of time, whether on the first day, second or third or fourth or fifth day, the moment you are caught having consumed alcohol, you will be asked to leave immediately. Okay. Number 2, if you're visiting the city, they would have stipulated a time by what time you must come back. Generally, it is around 9:30 or so. So you must adhere to that timing in letter and spirit. Don't be late even by 1 second. You must come back at least half an hour before the stipulated time. Because if you violate this instruction, you can be removed from that SSB. Let's say they have specified the time to be back at 9:30 and you watch the night show and come back at 1 o'clock. So this will not be acceptable to them. They will remove you immediately. Okay, number 3. During the SSB, there are certain office blocks or certain buildings or testing area like your individual obstacles and the GTO's outdoor task areas. These areas are out of bounds. Out of bounds का क्या मतलब है कि no candidate is allowed to go there. You cannot enter those areas or you cannot go to that testing area unless you are called by somebody. Then it is a different thing. But on your own, if you try to enter any of these areas, they will record it. You will not be allowed to enter inside, and if they find it's a serious violation, you may even be removed. Your area is only the mess, the dormitory where you stay, the mess where you eat your food, and to any other place where you will be taken by somebody, by a representative of the SSB. जो भी test है उससे related जहाँ भी है, you will be taken there. But you cannot go there on your own. So remember that. Number 4, no gambling, borrowing or lending money. You have not gone there to gamble, to play cards. You have gone there for a test. So please remember, if you're caught violating any of these instructions, it may cause serious problems for you. So please remember that. Okay. Now, this is a figure which you need to look at. See, when you go for your SSB on the very first day, when you report there, reporting on the same day in your batch, in one batch. Now, after the screening test, the PPDT test, which is also called an elimination test, what percentage of candidates are generally eliminated? Any idea? Anything from 70 to 80% candidates are rejected after the PPDT screening and test. What does it mean? Let's say if there were 300 candidates who reported on the very first day, so as many as anything from 200 to 225 candidates, maybe even a little more than that, will be removed from the selection process on the very first day. Only about 70-80 people will be left out of 300. Okay, now whoever gets screened in means whoever clears the PPDT test, all those candidates, what happens? They make batches of about anything from 15 to 20, maybe 22, 23 people, depending on how many number have got screened in. They make small batches of generally of around 20 people in one batch. Maybe 4 batches of 20 people would be made. And in each group, on an average, approximately how many candidates per group get selected? Any idea? Just about 2 to 3 people. If your group is made up of 20 candidates, after you have all been screened in, of the 20 people in your group, just about 2, maybe 3, not more than that. And sometimes not even one candidate from that group is cleared. So this is the selection rate of SSB. So in other words, if there were 300 people, how many people would finally get selected? Maybe 9, 10, 11, something like that. So the average is anything from 2 to 3% selection rate. So you must remember this figure so that you know where you stand. You've got to be right on top, in the top 2 or 3 candidates. Out of every 100 candidates, your position should be the first, second, or third out of 100 candidates at the top. Then you have a chance of getting cleared for your final selection. Okay, now the chest number that I was talking about, this is what it looks like. It's a piece of cloth and there is a number printed on it. Every candidate is allotted a number. They call it a chest number. So this piece of cloth also has the same number on the back. Now let's have a look at this picture. As you can see, this chest number 10, the same number would also be written in front. So throughout all your tests for the 5 days, you will have to continue wearing this chest number for all the tests, whether it is an indoor test or an outdoor test. And so much so that even when you go for that interview of the president, even if you are wearing a tie or a suit, you will still have to wear a chest number on top of it. Now during that SSB process, no candidate is allowed to address any other candidate by his name. First of all, you will not know each other's names. Why not? Because you would have assembled, you would have come for that SSB from different parts of the country. So the probability of knowing other candidates is negligible, 0. But within 1 or 2 days, because you're staying together, you're staying in the same dormitory, you're part of the same group, eventually within a day, you will get to know each other's name. But during the test, you are not allowed to address anybody by his name. You have to call him by his chest number only. The chest number is clearly visible. It is displayed through that apron. So in any discussion or any task where you are required to address another candidate, you have to address him by his chest number, not by his name. So please remember that. Okay. Now, day 2, the second day of your SSB, who will go for that day 2 test? Only those candidates who have been able to clear the PPDT, the screening and test. Now on day 2, you will have to go through 4 tests, indoor tests, and all 4 tests are psychological tests. In other words, day 1 and day 2 of your SSB, of your 5-day process, these 2 days are earmarked for the psychological tests. Now on day 2, which is the first test that you will appear in, the first test is called WAT, Word Association Test. Now what is this test about? In this test, you will all be seated in an auditorium, and the psychologist, through a projector on a screen, will flash about 60 words, one after another. Each word will be on display only for 15 seconds. You will have to look at that word and frame a sentence from that word. You get 15 seconds for each word. No extra time is given. On the 16th second, the previous word disappears from the screen and a new word comes on display. So this process continues till all the 60 words are shown one after another. Okay, so this test is WAT. More about it when we cover this test. The second test is called TAT, Thematic Appreciation Test. What happens in this test? In this test, you will be seated in an auditorium or a hall, and through a projector, they will show you 12 pictures on the screen. Each picture will be shown only for 30 seconds. You have to look at that picture, and after 30 seconds, the picture will disappear from the screen and you will be given 4 minutes to frame a story and write it on that sheet of paper pertaining to that picture that you have just seen. After 4 minutes, another picture will be flashed on the screen. There will be a beep sound, which is an indication that your time is over, and the new picture has now come on display. So you have to look at 12 pictures, one after another, and write 12 stories. Like I said, each picture will be shown only for 30 seconds, and then you get 4 minutes to write a story on that picture. So this is the second test. The third test is called SRT, Situation Reaction Test, SRT. Now what is this test about? In this test, they will throw about 50 to 60 situations at you. You will have to read that situation and write your response. What kind of situations? Let's say you're going by train to some place for an interview. You're going to Bangalore by train. Just as the train is about to enter Bangalore station, you find that your bag has been stolen. What will you do? Things like that. You are only a student studying in school. Your parents, and you are only 17 years old, 16, 17, 18, whatever, and your parents want you to get married to a girl of their choice. What will you do? So these type of situations will be posted to you, and you will have to write your response. So this type of a test is called SRT, Situation Reaction Test. Okay, the fourth test of day 2 and the last one is called SDT. What is SDT? Self-Description Test, SDT. Now in SRT, point number C, they will post imaginary situations to you. But in SDT, all the questions will be about you. Questions and your answers about yourself. What type of questions? Who do you like more, your father or your mother? Why? What is your favorite subject? Why? What do your school teachers think about you? What do your neighbors say about you? Things like that. Any question in SDT is about you, and you have to write your response in all fairness, the correct response. Okay, so these are the tests: WAT, TAT, SRT, and SDT. All four are psychological tests, and these are conducted on day 2. So after this test, the SDT, the psychologist's work is over. Now you will not get to see him because all his tests are over on day 1 and day 2. By the end of day 2, the psychological tests are all done. Okay, let's go to, before I go to day 3, let me tell you, for any screen-based test, your seating position in the hall will in no way affect your observation of the image or word on the screen. What does it mean? Whether you are seated right in front or somewhere towards the end in that hall, it in no way will it affect what is shown, your visibility, or your being able to see what is shown on the screen. Let's say if it is a word, WAT test, whether you're seated in front or in the middle or in the last rows, you will be able to see that word very, very clearly. In the case of picture-based tests, like your TAT, whatever is the image that is shown, the picture that is shown, it will be clearly visible to you because the screen would be very big. It will not be a small screen. It will be a very big, huge screen. So you will be able to see the images or the words very clearly. Okay. Now day 3. Day 3 and day 4, these 2 days are earmarked for the GTO, the group testing officers tests. Now on day 3, the GTO conducts 2 types of tests. Some tests are indoor tests, which are conducted inside the classroom. And there are some tests for which you will be taken to an open ground outside, where you will be required to perform certain tasks. So they are called outdoor tests. Now, GTO conducts a total of 9 tests, of which 3 are indoor and 6 are outdoor tests. Now on day 3, his procedure starts with the indoor tests. Which 3 indoor tests? The first indoor test is group discussion. Now in this group discussion, there will be 2 rounds. In the first round, he will give you 2 topics, and the group has to decide which topic would they like to discuss. In other words, you have a choice of choosing any one of the 2 given topics. Now in the second round, the GTO will only give you 1 topic, and now you do not have a choice. Any topic that is given to you in the second round, because there's only 1 topic, you do not have a choice and you will have to discuss that. Now there's no fixed time for this test. In the group discussion, unlike many other tests, this test is not timed. As long as the discussion goes on fruitfully, as long as some good positive points keep coming out, the GTO will let this test continue. Whether it takes 8 minutes or 11 minutes or 18 minutes, 22 minutes, there's no fixed time for this test. Okay, number 2. The second test is called GPE, Group Planning Exercise. It is also called MPE. It is known, this test, the second test is known by 2 names, GPE and MPE. Group Planning Exercise or Military Planning Exercise. Now what is this test about? In this test, you all would be seated in a hall and there will be a sketch in front of you, a canvas sheet on which some map or some diagram is printed on it. The GTO will explain all the details of that sketch, and he will give you a narrative, a printed narrative. You have to read the narrative, correlate whatever is written on that sheet with the sketch in front of you. And on the reverse side of the sheet, you will have to do 2 things. Number one, you will have to identify what are the problems that you have to address. That is the first thing. And the second thing is you will have to write your individual suggested solution to resolve that problem, whatever is shown in that or given in that narrative. Now, this is the first part of the GPE, and you get 10 minutes time to do this. From the time the sheet is given to you, you have to submit this sheet back with your identification of problems and your individual suggested solution written in the on the reverse side of the sheet in 10 minutes time. Now, in the second part of this test, you all have to discuss your problems which you have identified and the solution that you have suggested. And just like PPDT test, you have to reach a common group solution. And once through that discussion you reach a common group solution, somebody from the group will have to give it out to the GTO. This is our solution. This is how we are going to resolve the group's solution. This is how we are going to resolve this problem. So this is the second test. The third test is called lecturate. What happens in a lecturate? Everybody is seated in a hall, and one by one, each candidate will go to the GTO. He would have a pack of chits with him. You will have to pick out 3 chits. Each chit would have a topic printed on it. You take the 3 chits, go out of that classroom. Number one, you decide which topic of the 3 that you have picked up, which is the topic that you are going to speak on. It is your choice. You have to speak on only one topic. Of the 3 topics that are given to you, you don't have to speak on all 3. You decide of the 3 which one would you speak on. And you get 3 minutes time to prepare. Make up your, you can prepare the speech in your mind. You can think about the points that you are going to speak on, and after 3 minutes you are called in. You come on stage on the dais and deliver your lecturate. You get 3 minutes to deliver the lecturate, 3 minutes to prepare, 3 minutes to deliver your talk, your lecturate. As soon as the 3 minutes are over, your time is up. Okay, so this is the format for the lecturate part. Everybody, all the candidates have to deliver lecturate on any one topic of their choice, of the 3 chits that they picked out. Okay, so these were the 3 indoor tests that you are required to go through on day 3. After this, there will be 6 more tests, all 6 outdoor tests, of which 4 tests will be conducted by the GTO on this day, on day 3. Which are those 4 tests? One is called PGT. The second is called snake race. It is also called IGOR, intergroup obstacle race. The third is HGT, half group task. The fourth is command task. And these 4 tests you will have to go through as outdoor tests. Now, of your 5-day stay in the SSB, you will find that day 3 has been your busiest day. On all other days, by 1:15 you may be let off because all the tests are completed. But day 3 will be an extremely busy day because there are too many tests, and there's one test called command task, where every candidate one by one will have to perform a task. So this test, although the duration is only 5 minutes, but because 20 people have to go through this test one by one, so it eats up a lot of time. Okay, now what is PGT? The first test. It is called progressive group test, progressive group task. Now in this test, the GTO will explain to you what is the requirement. Basically, there will be 4 obstacles that you are required to cross collectively as a group. You will be given a load which you have to take across these obstacles. You will also be given some helping material to assist you in your crossing the obstacles. And this test is timed. You get 40 minutes time to complete this. Okay, so more about PGT when we come to that. Okay, the second test is snake race. It's also called IGO or intergroup obstacle race. In this test, your entire group of 20 people is broken into 4 subgroups, subgroup A, B, C, and D. And each subgroup collectively together have to cross a series of obstacles. It is a kind of a competition. All 4 subgroups are lined together at the start point. And in front of you, you will find there will be 5 or 6 obstacles. All groups will have similar obstacles in front of them. And you will have to start from the start point, and after crossing each obstacle one by one, you will have to reach the finish point. Now there is no fixed time for this, but because it is a competition, it's a kind of a race. So every subgroup would want to reach the finish point at the earliest. So it is a kind of a competition. But there are certain riders also in this test that you cannot go to the second obstacle. You cannot begin to do the second obstacle till all the 5 members of your subgroup have completed the first one. If 4 people have completed the first obstacle and the fifth candidate is still on it, you cannot start doing the second obstacle. So this is one rider. The second rider is, in case you have already crossed an obstacle, then you cannot go back to assist anybody who's stuck behind. If somebody, let's say there are 5 people, 3 people have already crossed that obstacle and 2 people are still behind. Now one of them is unable to clear that obstacle. He is finding it difficult. So only that 5th guy who's still behind, he can help him. If you've already crossed over, you cannot return back to provide any assistance. Okay, I'll explain this more in detail when we come to this slide. The third is HGT, half group task. In this test, your entire group of 20 people or 19 people or 21 people, whatever is your number, it is divided into 2 halves, which means about 10 people in each group. Let's say if it was a group of 20 people, then there will be 10 people in each group. If there are 22 people, then 11 people. Okay, now what happens in this? Your group is divided into 2 parts. Half of your group performs a task very similar to PGT together. And once it is done, you go and sit down in the second half. It is brought to do a similar test by the GTO. Now, what is the purpose of this HGT? Why not make the whole group do it together like PGT? See, in PGT, when 20 people are doing that test, the GTO is not in a very good position to observe each candidate very, very minutely. But in HGT, because the group is now divided into 2 halves, so he has only to observe half the number of people together in one group. Number 1. Number 2, this is an advantage from the GTO's point of view, an advantage to him. But there is also an advantage to the candidates. What kind of advantage? Let's say in PGT, because there are 20 people, before you could give out your plan, somebody else gave his plan and his plan got accepted. So you were, although you had a very good plan in mind, but you were unable to give it out because somebody else gave it before you. Now in HGT, you are getting another chance to display your talent, to show your talent, and to give out your plan which you would have about this test. So you are also getting another opportunity to show your talent. So that is the purpose of HGT. Okay, the 4th test is command task. Now what happens in command task? In command task, now unlike PGT, HGT, IGOR and other tests, where nobody is nominated as a leader. So how does a leader emerge? A leader emerges by a candidate's initiative, his interest, his drive. These things dictate who will become a leader. But in command task, every candidate one by one is nominated as a leader and an independent task is assigned to him. He is allowed to pick any two candidates from the group, and the commander, he briefs those two people of his group to perform or to fulfill a task which has been given by the GTO. More about it when we come to this slide. Okay, so this is the last test of day 3, the command task. So total 7 tests are conducted on day 3, of which 3 are indoor and 4 outdoor tests. And like I said, it will be a very, very busy day. Third day of the SSB will be the busiest day. Okay. Day 4. Now day 4 is also for the GTO, earmarked for the GTO. And there are 2 tests left which he has to conduct. The first one is called individual obstacles. Now in this test, every candidate one by one will go through a series of obstacles. You will have to cross 10 obstacles in a time frame of 3 minutes, one by one. So this is the first test. And the second test is called FGT, Final Group Task. Now what is FGT? What is the purpose? See, in FGT, before this test is conducted, the GTO would have seen all the candidates in 8 earlier tests. FGT is the 9th test and the last test. So by the time this FGT is conducted, the GTO would have been very, very sure about who are the good candidates who deserve to be selected and who are the ones who should be rejected because they have not performed well. Now in FGT, when you come to FGT, there is a possibility that out of, let's say, 20 candidates in your group, the GTO has already made up his mind about 17 or 18 or maybe 19 candidates who's fit to be selected, who's not fit to be selected. But there is a possibility that there may be 1 or 2 candidates about whom the GTO is still not sure what to do, whether to select them or to reject them. And why is he not sure about those one or two candidates? The reason is very simple. Those 2 candidates, they have done very well in some tests and done very badly in some other tests. So the GTO is not sure कि कैसे candidate हैं, are they good enough to be selected or not. So through that FGT, that final group test, final group task, the GTO will only observe those 2 candidates very, very discreetly. The group does not know who are the 2 candidates who are under observation. So as far as you are concerned, you will perform it just like PGT. You'll have to put in your best. But the GTO's focus is only on 1 or 2 candidates about whom he is not very sure. Now after this test, because he has observed those 2 candidates for at least 15-20 minutes in great detail, now he would be absolutely certain whether these candidates deserve to get selected or they deserve to get rejected. This is why FGT is conducted. Okay, like the last line says, day 3 and day 4 are earmarked for the GTO's test. Till now, you have spent 4 days in your SSB. Somebody might ask, sir, when will be my interview? Ek interview bhi to hona hai, so when is that due? When will it happen? So as you know, the interview is carried out by the president, the senior most person, either the president or the deputy president. So what happens? Your entire group, let's say there were 20 people, you're divided into 4 lots and 5 candidates per day are interviewed by the president, and this interview is carried out in the afternoons or in the evenings. Now every candidate whose interview is due, he will be informed in the morning that today at 4 o'clock you will have to call in this ground and you will be taken to the president's office for that interview. तो आपको सुबह बता देते हैं कि chest number 1 to 5 these 5 candidates will be interviewed today evening. Next day, chest number 6 to 10, ऐसे करके whatever be the number of the candidates in your group, everybody will be interviewed once. Depending on your chest number, if it is an earlier number, you may be issued on the very first day. If it is your last chest number 19 or 20, then you may be interviewed on day 4. So it all depends what is your chest number, but either on the day 1, day 2, day 3 or day 4, you will be interviewed by the president of the board. Okay, so this is how an interview is always carried out either in the afternoon or in the evening, depending on the time that the president has given. You will be called and you will be interviewed. Now day 5, the last day of your SSB. There are 3 things that happen on day 5. First is the final board conference. What happens in this final board conference, I'll explain to you in the next slide. Second is the closing address. And the third is the declaration of results. Now, final board conference. What happens in final board conference? In this, every candidate has to come on stage in a hall. That entire staff of SSB would be seated. The president, the GTOs and the psychologists. There will be as many as 10 to 12 officers who would be present in a hall. And every candidate, one by one, has to come on stage. And you are given about 1 minute's time. In that 1 minute time, you are required to speak and share your experience of the 5-day stay in the SSB. What all are you required to say? What are the things that you like? What are the things that you did not like? How was your visit to that city? Did you go out or not? What did you do? And you can also give suggestions, if any, for improvement of the conduct of the SSB test. Any suggestion that you want to give related to any administrative difficulty that you found, you can give that suggestion. For example, if let's say you've gone to Prayagraj for your SSB, which is in North India, and you are from a southern state, let's say you are from Tamil Nadu, you can give a suggestion. All these 5 days we were served North Indian food. There were 5 or 6 candidates from the southern part of India. So at least 1 day out of those 5 days, we should have been given South Indian food, dosa, or idli, or whatever. You can give a suggestion like that. Or let's say if your SSB took place during the winter months, in December or January, now they provide hot water for your bathing. Let's say if it was not very hot, it was just about lukewarm. So you can give a suggestion that the water that was given was not very hot, and the next batch that comes, they should be provided, hot water. So these type of suggestions you are allowed to give. Okay. Now, one by one, every candidate comes and he speaks on these 2 points. And then the second thing is closing address. You all assemble in a hall and there's a closing address given by some officer of the SSB. It is very similar to the opening address. In that opening address, you are welcomed. In the closing address, he'll thank you for your having come there and for your having behaved very well, for not creating any problem. And he'll say, now very soon your result will be declared. And anybody who has not been able to make it, please do not despair. If you have more chances, you can come back again. Maybe there was some shortcoming in your personality which was observed, because of which you could not get screened. But don't get demoralized. Next time when you come prepared and you will also get selected. So it's something like a pep talk. That is what he'll give in that closing address. After the closing address, the third and the last thing for day 5 is declaration of results. In this, some officer will come on stage. He will have a clipboard with a sheet of paper on it, and chest number wise, he will declare the results. Like he'll say, okay, now I am going to declare the results, and the results are like this. Chest number 1 selected. chest number 2 rejected, chest number 3 rejected, chest number 4 selected. So like this, one by one, he will, chest number wise, he will declare your result. And a copy of this result is also displayed outside that hall on a notice board. Why? So that in case you did not hear your result very correctly or you had a doubt, so once this result is declared, you can go out of that hall and check your result on the notice board also. Now, once the results are declared, what happens? Those candidates who have got rejected, who could not make it, इसमें fifth day पे जो rejection होता है, it is called conferenced out. Like if you are rejected on the first day, it will be screened out. It will be called screened out. But if you were able to stay there for 5 days and then got rejected, it is called conferenced out. Now those candidates who got rejected, who got conferenced out, they leave the SSB center after lunch on day 5. You're told, okay, now you can pack your bags, and some transport from the SSB will drop you at the railway station. Now, what about those candidates who have got selected? So candidates who have got selected, they will have to stay in that same SSB board for another 3, 4, 5 days, maybe more, because the next day onwards, your medical tests will start. And there's no fixed time for your medical test. It may take 3 days, it may take 5 days, generally it takes 3 to 4 days. But sometimes it may take longer also, because in case some specialist is not available, he is on leave for a day or two, then you will have to stay back. You'll have to continue staying in that SSB center and stay there till all your medical tests are completed. So this is, and you stay in the SSB, a transport of that SSB center will take you to the military hospital for your medical test and bring you back for those 3 or 4 days or 5 days. Every day you don't have to go there on your own. Some transport will take you there and bring you back. So this is a 5-day process of your SSB. Okay, now let's talk of basically what do they check in SSB. What is it about? That entire SSB is about checking whether you have certain officer-like qualities or not. This is what that test is all about. Form is OLQs, officer-like qualities, and there are 15 of them that are checked in a candidate through various tests. So this is what SSB is all about. Now, as far as OLQs are concerned, basically there are 2 types of OLQs. Number 1, which are inherent in you. Inherent means something which is there since birth. जैसे अगर आप गोरे हो तो you're fair complexioned since birth, or if you're dark complexioned, सांवले हो, काले हो, so that is inherent in you. So which are those qualities? Like honesty, integrity. If you're honest, wherever you are, whatever you are, wherever, in whatever capacity you may be working, you'll still be honest. So this is a quality you don't have to develop. It is already in you since birth. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to make an effort to build it because it is already in you. But then there are certain other kind of OLQs which you do not have, but you can develop them. Which are those OLQs? Number 1, your physical fitness. Let's say you are very weak today, but if you, for 1 month, every day in the morning you get up, you go for a jog, you start playing games, you improve your diet, start eating healthy food, what will happen? Within 1.5 months, maybe 2 months, you will become very strong. Physically, you'll become absolutely fit. So this is one quality which can be developed. Number 2, communication skills. Let's say you're very weak in English. You do not speak this language at all, or you speak this language, but you speak very little, and that too very badly. Now, if you get 6 months time, 4, 5, 6 months time, you can develop this quality very well. It is possible to develop it. You can begin, or you can learn to speak English. So this is one OLQ which can be developed. The third is organizing ability. when you organize a thing, an event for the first time, you will make a lot of mistakes. But if the same event is given to you the second time, you would have learned from your previous mistakes, and now the second time when you do it, you would have eliminated a large number of mistakes. There may still be some mistakes that you make, but most of the mistakes would get eliminated the second time. And if the same event is given to you to organize the third time, probably there will be no mistakes because you have learned from your previous mistakes. So this is called organizing ability, which can be developed. Now, as far as SSB is concerned, there are 15 OLQs which they check through various tests. Now, these 15 OLQs can be divided under 4 heads. So let's have a look at these 4 heads. Now, before we look at those 4 heads, see in that SSB, what do they see? Whether you have these OLQs or not. Or if you have them, do you have them in the requisite quantity or not? You may be having these OLQs, but you may have them in a very limited quantity, and therefore they may not clear you. So this is what they check in SSB कि OLQ यहाँ तो है ही नहीं, यहाँ है लेकिन जितनी चाहिए उससे कम है. So that will get you eliminated from the SSB process. You should have all the OLQs in the requisite quantity, requisite degrees that they are looking for. Okay. Now you can divide these 15 OLQs under 4 heads. First head is planning and organizing, that is related to the mind. Under this head, there are 4 OLQs that they check. Number 2, social adjustment, related to the heart or temperament. Under this head, they will check 3 OLQs. Number 3, social effectiveness. Now this is related to your leadership traits. Do you have any leadership traits or not? So there are 5 OLQs that fall under this category. And number 4, dynamic attitude. That means this is related to your physical fitness and courage. So under this head, there are 3 OLQs that come. So total how many? 4 plus 3 plus 5 plus 3. If you add these, how much does it come to? 15. So these are the 15 OLQs under 4 heads which they will check in you during that SSB. Now let's look at each heading one by one. Planning and organizing, that is related to the mind. 4 OLQs. Which are the 4 OLQs? Number 1, effective intelligence. Do you have the requisite gray matter in your head or not? That is effective intelligence. Number 1. Number 2, reasoning ability. When a new situation comes in front of you, can you reason correctly or not? The decision that you make, the way you perceive that situation, is it correct or is it not correct? In other words, do you have the right kind of reasoning ability in you or not? Number 3, organizing ability. Can you organize your things? If a task is given to you, can you organize it well or not? This is checked through various tests. And number 4, power of expression. In other words, your communication skills. How do you express yourself? How can you influence others through your speech? So this is called power of expression. Okay, so these are the 4 OLQs pertaining to the first head. Now the second head, social adjustment related to the heart or temperament. There are 3 OLQs. First is social adaptability. Are you a social person? Can you live in a society? Can you live in harmony with others? That is the first thing. Number 2, cooperation. If somebody needs assistance, are you willing to cooperate? Are you willing to extend a helping hand to him? That is the second thing. And the third is sense of responsibility. Are you a responsible person? Do you play your role in a society, in any organization that you are part of? Are you willing to shoulder responsibility and play your role or not? So this is the third OLQ which they check under this category. Number 3, social effectiveness. This is related to your leadership traits. And there are 5 OLQs. First is initiative. Anything which may not be your responsibility, but you see something bad happening, do you respond or not? Do you take action to correct it or not? That is called initiative. Number 2, self-confidence. When you face a formidable situation, an unfavorable situation, do you have confidence in your own self that you will be able to tackle this problem or not? So this is called self-confidence. Decision making. Can you make the right decisions or not? Are your decisions faulty? The decision that you make, is it balanced? Is it correct? Will it produce the desired result or will it lead to disaster? So this is called decision making. Number 4, ability to influence a group. How do you influence people in a group? It is an art. If you can do that, if you do not have this OLQ, even though you may have a very good point in mind, the group will not listen to you. On the other hand, if you have this ability, even if you have a very average point in your mind, the group will get influenced by what you are saying. So do you have this ability or not? And number 5, liveliness. What is liveliness? Liveliness is being cheerful, being happy. If you face an adverse situation, do you make faces? Do you start complaining? Do you start cursing? Or do you take everything in your stride and deliver and stay calm and composed and you keep smiling? So this is called liveliness. Okay, and the 4th category is, it is called dynamic attitude, which is related to your physical fitness and courage. Which are those tests? Which are those OLQs? Number 1, determination. जिसको हिंदी बोलते हैं ठान लेना कि ये काम तो मैं करूंगा, कुछ भी हो जाए, I'll do it. So that is called determination. So are you a determined person or not? Number 2, courage, himmat. Do you have courage or do you lack this quality? And the 3rd is physical fitness. Is your body strong enough? Are you physically strong, physically in the right frame of mind to implement tasks? So these are the 3 OLQs which are checked under this category. So that makes it 15 OLQs. Okay. Now in the SSB, through their various tests, these are the 15 OLQs that will be checked. Each test, whether it is a psychological test or a group test or an interview, through any test, some or the other OLQ will get checked. So that is what SSB is all about. So, okay, so this is where we end today's session. And the 3rd part, whenever I have that 3rd session to take, we'll start with the tests. I'll explain what is the format of each test, what is the concept, how is it conducted, what are the do's and don'ts about it, and how you should perform. So this is what we will do in the next session. So here I end this session and thank you very much. Thanks a lot.